In this video, I'm gonna talk about how I learn new words in an enjoyable and practical way so you can understand more content and also transfer those words into your active vocabulary, allowing you to use them effortlessly when speaking. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. My name is Jefferson and I love learning languages. I successfully learned English and French entirely on my own, and I'd like to share the techniques and the strategies that worked for me so you can give them a try. In my opinion, learning words is the most fundamental activity when learning a new language. The more words we know, the more material we have access to, and therefore, the more we can enjoy the process. That's why I spend the majority of my time learning new words. But here's an important question. How can we learn words effectively? You see, when I was learning English at school, my teachers told me that the key was memorizing lists. I spent a lot of time trying to memorize the different verbs, conjugations, and other vocabulary. But in a matter of days, I couldn't remember half of them. And even words, for me, it was impossible to use those words in a conversation. And when I encountered those words in a text, their meaning wasn't that clear for me. On top of that, sitting in front of a piece of paper, repeating words, was the most irksome activity I can remember from school. I hated English at that time, and I thought that maybe I didn't have the gene for learning languages. However, all this suddenly changed when I realized that to learn something as difficult as a new language, I need to have a good time while doing that, and memorizing lists of verbs wasn't a pleasant activity for me. I discovered that the best way to acquiring words is by exposing myself to the language as much as I can every day. This way, the most frequent words are going to stick in my head from seeing them every day in different situations. From this idea of exposing yourself to a language, we have an incredibly amount of possibilities to suit each person's taste. For example, if you love Harry Potter, you could try reading the book for 15 minutes every day. Or maybe you love watching series on Netflix, so you could try watching half of the episode in English with subtitles. The idea is to use English as a way of doing pleasant activities. In my case, I love reading, so I started reading short stories like those by Poe. Every new word I encounter, I look up its meaning, and I read some example sentence. Then I made flashcards using those sentences. On one side there were 2 or 3 sentences using the new word, and on the back was the meaning of the word explained in English. This way I could learn the word in context. Nowadays, with my French, I like to use Anki because of the spaced repetition algorithm. But I have to say this, I don't make flashcards all the time. I do look up the meaning of the word, but I don't always take the time to make the flashcard. This is because sometimes I just want to keep enjoying the reading, the video, or whatever I'm doing. And I think it's okay. Sometimes it's important to self-regulate the process so we can enjoy it. Now, I would like to answer some questions I've seen on the internet about learning new vocabulary based on my experience learning English and French. I don't think it's useful to define a specific number of words to learn every day. I prefer to switch this thought to how many words should I be exposed to every day? With this change, we put ourselves in a position where we use the limited amount of time we have to learn English every day in a more effective way. Let's see why I say this. Imagine you say you want to learn 20 words every day. Now, one way to find those 20 words could be searching on the internet or using vocabulary books such as Oxford Word Skills. Now that you have those 20 words, it's time to put in the efforts to learn them. Strategies for this include writing them down on a piece of paper, repeating them out loud, or creating different example sentences. Following that approach, I could easily spend an hour. But what if we spend an hour reading a book we like? It doesn't have to be a fiction book. I read Deep Work by Cal Newport, and I didn't just learn new words, but also I learned useful things I could apply to my life later. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying using vocabulary books or searching on the internet for new vocabulary isn't effective. It is, and actually I've used those strategies sometimes too. For example, from time to time, I like to check the Oxford Word Skill so I can learn some advanced vocabulary, but I don't make any lists or I don't do any exercises. Instead, I made flashcards on Anki with some example sentences, and I practiced them for a few minutes. However, I don't think this way of learning vocabulary is sustainable over time because almost for me, it's boring. We are not consuming meaningful content through isolated words and phrases. But when we read a book, we are engaged with the story in the case of a fictional book, or the book is helping us with a problem we're facing in the case of a non-fiction book. And if you are not into reading, you can use YouTube videos or podcasts, as I explained in my video about listening. We have to understand that forgetting is part of the learning process. We need to accept the fact that we're gonna forget words, and then we're gonna relearn those words. And through that process of relearning and forgetting words, our vocabulary is built. For common vocabulary, this isn't a problem because if we expose ourselves enough to the language, those words are gonna stick to our mind inevitably. For those words which are not as frequent, Anki is a good solution because of the spaced repetition algorithm. This is a process that takes time, so we need to be patient. Active vocabulary means that those words are ready to use immediately. We retrieve them with no problem. There is a gap between our passive and active vocabulary, even in our mother tongue. However, I've noticed that as we increase the passive set of words, the active one grows too, in a kind of automatic way, without doing anything special. This requires time, so we have to be patient. We are constantly forgetting and relearning words. That's why I emphasize the importance of exposing ourselves to language as much as possible. There are certain activities that help me a lot. One of them is writing. There were a time in which I like writing a journal every day. Here, I try to write about the events of my day in as much detail as possible, making an effort to use more sophisticated words, so the writing would be as close as possible to what I do in my native language. Another one of my favorite techniques is recording myself talking about a topic. I like to ask ChatGPT, "Hey, I'm practicing my freestyle in English. Can you give me a question to answer for practice?" Then I recorded my answer and check it. I try to use new vocabulary every time. This is a simple exercise that is not gonna take you more than 20 minutes, but it's incredibly effective. Check the description for my reading club. We'll read a variety of topics so you can practice your English, have a good time, and learn new vocabulary. See you in the next video.